Hi, Shamara. Let me know when you can hear and see me. I know it takes it a second to get all hooked up and going. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Pretty good. Do you have a good day?
Yeah, just a little tired. I apologize, but
Oh,
yeah, but
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I get that. Like, it's Tuesday. We can't be tired yet, right? We still got 3 more work days to go.
Tuesdays are my bad day from the work perspective, but
Aw. Well, hopefully you get some good rest tonight and tomorrow you feel more refreshed. So, reflecting on what we were doing last session, what were the things that kind of stood out to you as things that you felt like you were improving on, things that you felt like you could continue to work on? What were some of the things that stood out to you with the narration and working on the book?
we were just kind of like working on, straight narration.
Yeah.
I don't know, was kind of just happy with, how it was progressing.
Yeah.
So can't
Good,
complain.
awesome. Yeah, so you were liking what we were doing. So, some of my notes that I had made for myself and just thinking back, working on the phrasing. So, like, this is one connected thought. And so, we don't want that one connected thought to be choppy. We want that to flow and come out in one, like a, flowing river, right? And then we take a breath. So, it's like, there's like rock in the middle of the river or something, and then it flows between. So it's like something interrupts the flow momentarily, and that's okay because it's a mental shift. So every time you take that breath, it's like I have a new thought, and then we go into that next connected thought. So that was something that I had made a note of that was functioning better, which I liked. I was really liking that. It was a little more, um, I would say accurate but a little more choppy. And then last session, we got better with like, this is a smooth, connected thought, using the breath to connect through, and then taking time to take the breath into the next thought. So that was much better. So I had phrasing and flow were improved. And then another thing I made a note of was the points of view, the strong points of view. Um, because when you were thinking about that, when you were working on that, I definitely started to hear the phrases come out differently. And I was like, oh, it never landed quite like that. I heard like different perspectives, or I went, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. It lands differently and it gives you um, like just it's funny because you can have like 5 different people witness a car accident, right? And then they'll all have a different take on it because they had these different points of view. So they interpret it differently based on what they saw, right? And you get a slightly different story from each of them. And um and so it's kind of like that where it's like, oh, like I hadn't considered that or I hadn't seen that perspective. And by thinking about what are the main words I want to emphasize, what are the descriptive words, what are the active words, what are those key people, places, and things. By thinking about that and having, a definite attitude towards them, that changed how a lot of those phrases were landing for me. And I was like, oh, okay. Like I felt like the main character had a little more attitude to me, which I actually liked a lot. I was like, oh, okay, she feels a little more like she has a little more substance to me when we started focusing more on the strong points of view, which I liked. She's a YA, strong female lead character. And so, I don't think of her as like I feel like Bella in Twilight is kind of a like wishy-washy kind of like non-character that anyone can sort of just be like, I can kind of see myself in her shoes because she's just kind of a non-character. Like she doesn't have a ton of substance, especially early on. Like she doesn't really know who she is. And then like other characters are stronger characters. But if I look at something like Fourth Wing, I feel like the main character, even though she is like she's like, oh, like, I don't know if I belong at the Dragon Rider Training Academy. She still has substance. She's still pretty fierce. She's smart, like, she's quick-witted. So, like, a lot of strong character points, and she has definite points of view, attitude. And I feel like that was coming, this character kind of moved from like a Bella kind of character to more of that like fourth wing lead character where she's a stronger kind of character, which I really liked. I felt like, especially with things like, because there are some kind of like magical and mystical, like intriguing elements and things. I feel like when you get into, I don't know, just she seems like she's gonna be to me a more like have a little more oomph to her, substance to her. Um, so I liked it better with that myself. Um, and two, with you saying like originally your husband, when he was writing it, he was like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to make the lead character a boy or a girl. Like, I feel like, just with like some of the comments you were saying, if we are aiming for a character that is a little more like gender neutral and going with kind of like what I see in trends in like novels right now is having like a little more strength to the character, a little more substance and strength and attitude. So I loved it. So those were things I heard that I was like, oh, I'm really digging that. So hopefully you liked those things too. So I would love to kind of continue trying to get some of those things, but I also was thinking working a little more on dialogue today as well would be cool. So we were kind of focusing more on the narrator voice, but I would love to incorporate more of the dialogue, more of the character voices this time too. What do you think?
I think that sounds good.
Great.
Um, and I am not prepared today. I do apologize.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, it sounds like you had a kind of a long day, so it's perfectly okay. We'll figure it out as we go. Um, so were the comments I was making, did those kind of resonate and ring true for you from the last session?
For sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember I was looking at my notes while you were talking, and
Yeah.
I was um I do have in here, slowing down, trying to make more
Hmm.
emotional connection, um,
Yeah.
make sure certain elements are more suspenseful. Um, what else do I have in here? Um, yeah, make the descriptive words a little bit, try to bring the energy to those descriptive words.
Yeah, yeah. Good notes. Yeah,
Yeah.
you've got a few that I had not jotted down. So yeah, I remember us working though on slowing down a little bit. And what were some of the things that kind of you remember that helped you slow down?
We talked about kind of breathing through the nose. But I was telling you that when I was like trying to think about the character and how to do everything, I felt like I wasn't really thinking about it, as much
Yeah.
as I should have. But
And that's okay. Sometimes we go like, oh, yeah, I should probably do more of that or like lean more into it or whatnot, but it's like it's not quite where I want it to be, but it'll get there. Um, yeah, and I think one of the comments that I made towards the end of the session last time was that as we're creating these new habits and new techniques, it's we can't do five brand new things at once. It's too much for our brain to handle. So just picking one thing and going, I'm going to try to really improve this one thing and make it better. I think that that's a thing that I would love to see is as we work through, we pick one thing that we say, okay, I'm going to try to make sure I do this particular thing and I improve that one thing. And then hopefully, as we continue practicing those techniques, they are eventually going to um, become more of that like second nature thing and something that just becomes part of your habit more. So
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. So I actually would love to start by doing the same section we did last time, just because I want to hear where it's at. After having a week go by, I just want to hear how it goes. So does that sound like a good plan for you?
Sure.
Okay.
Just a little bit of a warning. Like I've been, we've been changing stuff, and so it is a little bit different. So
Oh, right. Yeah, you mentioned that he was going to rework some of the you had given him notes, so he was going to go through and like
yes, he's
revamp
gonna
and
go
edit
through
some
it.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's totally fine.
yeah, so just letting you know if it's a little bit different.
Yeah, yeah. If it's like, oh, this is surprising and different. Yeah. No problem.
Okay. All right. So I guess I'll start at the beginning. It was cold and drizzling. The first time Clara died, for the first time. Rain blurred the windshield, while the bus heater pushed out air that was too hot and too damp to be comfortable. Clara Mason, 17 and chronically sarcastic, watched a raindrop collect at a scratch in the glass and start gliding downward. She had a window seat in the middle of the bus. No one ever challenged her for it. At school, she floated easily between groups, the athletes who claimed the front rows, the debate kids who clustered towards the back, and the kids who defined themselves by their individuality sprinkled randomly. And from the middle seat, she could lean forward or back, trade remarks, lean in, and be part of different conversations without having to commit to just one. Across the aisle, Lena Torres had fallen asleep mid rant, one earbud dangling like a wilted antenna, hoodie strings knotted under her chin in a way that definitely qualified as a choking hazard. Her curls were pulled back into a loose puff that never stayed put for long, and the warm brown of her skin caught what little light filtered through the fogged windows. Clara reached over, loosened the strings with a finger, and withdrew her hand before Lena could notice. She felt obliged to consider drawing a Sharpie mustache on her best friend for the sake of morale, but decided against it. It felt too obvious, too easy. I think that's what we read last time.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I heard a couple little changes there, which is great. I mean, like you were saying before, with him being from New Zealand, just certain phrases and things might come out a little differently. And so, you helping him polish those kind of things or finding continuity was one thing that you noticed, like here it was one thing and there in the book it was
Yeah.
another thing. And so those kind of things, it's great that he's got your feedback. I love that. So yeah, it's, a work in progress. It's evolving. Um, one thing I loved was the vocal tone. So just kind of like the general sound, like the vocal quality. So I would say it had a little bit of a more suspenseful, intriguing quality right from the beginning to me. A little more warmth to the tone. It was actually much slower today. So I don't know if it's that you were like, I'm a little tired
Brian.
today, but it felt actually much more like slow. I thought the pacing was better. There were a couple times where you were like, wait, what does that say? Probably because it was a different moment. So I could feel the hesitation, but just in a couple spots. But overall, I thought that the vocal tone, the ambiance, the pacing was much better. And so I was actually very pleased with that take. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, it wasn't bad. I think, and I just had a lot going on in my brain because I was like, oh, that's even more different than last time I chatted. He and I have been, going back and forth with things and like,
Right.
yeah,
So you
trying
had
to,
changed some things that were like unexpected, and you were like, oh, okay,
yeah.
that's new.
So I thought it was. I mean, I had read this chapter, again.
Yeah.
There are a couple of even more like things that were added, so it was just a surprise.
Right. Yeah. So you're like, wait, what is this? this line? I haven't read that before.
Yeah.
Yeah. But overall, like I said, I definitely heard a lot of really good progress there. And that was one of the things last time that I had said. I was like, there are things that are unexpected and I do feel like there would be some intrigue, there'd be some suspense. And so I definitely felt like there was more of that this time, which I was kind of excited to hear. That's pretty fun. Um, so then, and I would say too, like it has room to change as you go through. But I really enjoyed starting right off the bat with that more suspenseful, intriguing, like what's gonna happen kind of a feel. I thought that was really nice. It worked beautifully. So very nice. So do you want to try a new chunk? Do you want to try just like a chunk right after this, or do you want to jump to another section? Totally up to you.
Yeah, I guess we can jump to a different section. Um,
Yeah, just to like get a little different flavor, a different like part of the story, just so that you can kind of experiment with, a different mood, a different vibe. If the character's a little more like agitated and frenzied, or there's a part where she's feeling scared, or there's a part where she's super excited about something, just something a little contrasting, I think would
okay.
be great.
Okay. I'm jumping to chapter 12. Okay.
Okay. Okay. So quite a jump ahead in the story. Awesome. All
Well,
right.
I mean, if you want to hear the first, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, awesome. So probably quite a different section here.
It is very, yes, yeah, completely different.
Awesome.
Okay. All
That's
right.
great. All right. So yeah, so let's do just you're just gonna pick a chunk of it, and I just want you to do that first take of it. And I'll just listen and we'll go from there.
Chapter 12. Explain this like I'm 5. The night held its breath, and she stepped through. Inside, the air changed the way it does in places that mean business. Filtered, faintly chemical, and quiet on purpose. Fluorescent lights hummed, a thin sound that wouldn't quit. The hallway was a tired beige. A camera blinked, steady and impatient. The door shut like paperwork behind her, final, polite, unforgiving. Okay, Clara turned because she had to see the person who just let her cross the threshold she hadn't been sure was real. You're not Alden. The man who opened the door looked briefly amused, as if her sentence matched a conversation he had already queued up in his head. No, I'm not. Where is he? She paused, then winced at herself. Sorry, I just. He was the one who. Alden is a recruiter, Keith said, not unkindly. He doesn't like staying in the office. So he just drops a card like a curse and vanishes? Keith smiled. Yes, that's more or less how he works. That's not reassuring. It isn't meant to be, he said gently. It's meant to be effective. So, anyway, that's
Nice. Oh,
I have
I'm
more.
really loving the dialogue. I think it's already working so beautifully. Like one of my very favorite moments was when you said okay, which like is such a small thing, but the way you said it, like the pause and the okay, like it came across so wonderfully. I was like, ooh, I know exactly how that character is feeling. It was great. The dialogue is wonderful. And you're doing a beautiful job with the pause where we have the narrator voice, the pause, and then going into the character voice. I love that. That's beautiful. And I also felt like the shifts into like different characters was actually very well done. I'm so pleased. So a lot of the character work we had been doing is kind of seamlessly transitioning over into narration, which is really, really fun to hear. Yay! So, yeah, that's excellent. We're holding on to a lot of that good character work. Um, and I also felt like the pacing for the narrator was still really nice, a little bit slower. The last two sessions, we kept being like, okay, let's slow down a little bit. And so this time I feel like you're getting it. It's kind of fallen into this really nice pace for narration, which is great. And then the character paces, I would say, can be a little different. The characters' pacing can be more based on their attitude, their emotions, their energy in this moment. And the narrator, though, is going to have a little more of a steady, slower flow. And so I thought that you did a very nice job with those transitions as well. What was maybe your favorite thing about this take? I was so pleased.
I really hadn't tried the male voice yet, but I felt like I was happy with it. Like I felt like
Yeah.
it wasn't too, I don't know,
Yeah, we had talked a little bit
I don't know,
about how
like
some
subtle.
authors will want it to be like a full-on character voice, and some will just want to kind of get a sense that the character changed, have a little bit more of like the attitude shift. Um, so like they'll be like, okay, like make the female characters have a little bit higher pitched and the male characters a little lower pitched, and then it's more of like an attitude shift, or maybe one has a little dialect, or it's not like a full on, it's more of a like this one's a little bit nasally and this one has a little bit of like blah, blah, blah. And their phrases kind of taper off at the end. Like it can be subtle things. It doesn't have to be a full on like fleshed out character. I definitely felt like I was able to follow when the characters were changing. And so I would say what you did was a more like subtle kind of difference where it's like, okay, now we have a male character, now we have a female character. It doesn't have to be like a full on, totally different voice for every single character. Um, so this was more of that subtle approach, which I think works great. It just has to be, something changed about the character voice. It doesn't have to be like a full on change. So yeah, I felt like it was still clear to me. So what I would do is ask your husband if that's enough of a change, like if he likes that or if he wants more or even less. Because I've also had people be like, I really don't want character voices. I really just want you to read it. So they just want like a pause and then say the line, pause, say the line. So I stay just in my normal voice, but with just the attitude shift, and I don't change anything. The majority of the time, though, there's like a little like sprinkling, like salt and pepper it, with a little something, a dash of something to kind of signal that the character changed. And then less commonly, they'll want full-on fleshed out character voices. So yeah, it's totally up to them. But this was that kind of like, let's season it a little bit. So it has a little flavor of the character, but it's not a fully fleshed out, totally different voice, which to me is a lot more work and a lot more fatiguing to your voice. So this is kind of my favorite style, what you just did to do personally. Because we still get a clear, like, it's a new character, but it's not quite as physically demanding on your voice. So, yeah, awesome. So, a lot of really positives, and that was just our first take. So, I'm really pleased with that. If you picked one thing that you were going to say, I feel like I could do this particular thing better, one main thing that you go, I feel like improving this would, really like bump it up a little bit. What would that thing be?
Um,
I know sometimes it's like hard to pinpoint,
yeah,
just
like
one
there's so many
thing
things
too.
that need work, like, or we'll be here all day.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me a few. What were a few, if it's more than one, just what did you notice that you were like, I could do that better. I could do this better.
I mean, I was going slowly, so it probably wasn't as obvious, but I really wasn't paying as much attention to the punctuation and everything. Kind of use it. I could
Sure.
probably use that
Okay.
a bit more to, I guess, help with the flow of the
Yeah.
the phrasing in the paragraph.
Right. Yeah, so why don't let's take that one thought, since that's the first one that you mentioned. Let's just take that one thought. We're just going to go through and really pay attention to the punctuation. Let that guide you as far as phrasing. And then also, I like to go a little bit more in depth. If it's a comma, it's just a little tiny sip of air, like a small pause. If it's a period, it's a little more final, so a little more firm pause. If it's an exclamation point, I'll usually accelerate a little bit and maybe go up in pitch a little bit and maybe accent the last word a little bit. If it's a question mark, I'll kind of scoop at the end. So I let that punctuation, whatever it is, kind of guide me in terms of how long or short of a pause, if I'm going to speed up or slow down or, raise in pitch or lower pitch. So, all those kind of things you can just kind of think about what the punctuation is telling you and try to let it guide you a little bit more. Yeah. So, let's go ahead and try that again.
Chapter 12. Explain this like I'm 5. The night held its breath, and she stepped through. Inside, the air changed the way it does in places that mean business, filtered, faintly chemical, and quiet on purpose. Fluorescent lights hummed, a thin sound that wouldn't quit. The hallway was a tired beige. A camera blinked, steady and impatient. The door. Okay. Clara turned because she had to see the person who just let her cross a threshold she hadn't been sure was real. You're not Alden. The man who opened the door looked briefly amused, as if her sentence matched a conversation he already had queued up in his head. No, I'm not. Where is he? She paused, then winced at herself. Sorry, I just. He was the one who. Alden is a recruiter, Keats said, not unkindly. He doesn't like staying in the office. So he just drops the card like a curse and vanishes? Keats smiled. Yes, that's more or less how he works. That's not reassuring. It isn't meant to be, he said gently. It's meant to be effective. Clara hesitated. I think I stopped there earlier, sorry.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I definitely again was hearing things very differently that time. Um I felt like I grasped more of who that character is who answered the door and is like, oh, like he's not here, that guy. I feel like I got a better handle on like who he is and his attitude and his character um in there, and kind of her, I guess, like feeling a little nervous and being like, wait a minute, like who are you? You're not the person I met. So I definitely felt like just by observing the punctuation, I was getting much more of the feel of like the dynamic between them, I would say. What did you think of that take? What did you like about it?
Um, I I actually prefer I realize like I do like paying attention to the punctuation. I think
Mhm.
it brings me out of like my head a bit. I don't know, like I'm just focused on doing what it says.
Yeah.
Less like I don't know, judging myself. I'm because I'm I'm paying so much attention to to the actual wordplay.
Right. Yeah. You're so focused that you can't really judge yourself. You're like, I can't be in my head because I'm too focused on what I'm doing. Yeah, I think that's, a great, a great place to be.
Yeah, yeah. I'll take it.
Like, I really can't judge myself. I don't have the brain power at this moment. Perfect. We like that. So yeah, I definitely really enjoyed that take. I definitely heard progress there. So then kind of reflecting back, is there another thing that you feel like you could lean more into or that would help you to take it even further? What do you think?
Um, I mean, I would like to work on like what she sounds like. This is kind of like my first time trying to do what I think
Hmm.
um she's gonna sound like.
Yeah. Okay. So fleshing out her character voice a little bit more and attitude. So I'm curious, at this point in the story, how would you describe her as a character, her personality, who she is?
Um, at this point, like she's still, her young, sarcastic self, but she's a little has a bit more I guess self-doubt. She's not
Yeah.
sure if she wants to join this um organization. She's not really even sure what they do yet or um
So a little
yeah,
bit of insecurity here and like I'm not sure, like uncertainty. She's not sure how she feels about this. So there's like a little bit of a trepidation there.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. Awesome. So when somebody is unsure or feeling that trepidation, feeling a little bit, maybe like uncertainty, maybe a little intimidation, a little bit like maybe nervousness. How do they talk? Like, what are some things you notice in a voice?
Um, might be a little maybe a little bit higher pitched, maybe a little bit more higher strung than usual.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Sometimes people's voice, when they get nervous or uncertain, their voice will raise and pitch a little bit. Sometimes they'll get a little squeakiness or like a little bit constricted in the voice just because it's like a little more tense. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Good. What else do you notice?
Um, you mean just about people who are when they're
Yeah,
like
right. Yeah, somebody that might be in that kind of scenario.
I mean my guess is that she's still young, but she's probably trying to be more professional because it is like a office setting,
Yeah,
but she still was kind of thrown off balance by the fact that
right.
somebody that she doesn't know is meeting her here. Right.
Yeah, and it's very unexpected. It's like, wait a minute, this is not what I
Uh-huh.
anticipated.
Exactly.
But like you said, she's going in trying to put her best foot forward, make a good impression. And so that would be something that like she's doing her best to be like, I want to impress you. I want to, so it's that, feeling of like nervousness, but also wanting to put our best face forward. So kind of a balance. So you could have moments where each of those things kind of shine through in that moment.
Mhm.
I like that. Do you want to try it again? You could try just her lines if you wanted to, or we can try the whole thing. What do you think?
Um, I can try to do her lines,
Sure.
but he doesn't really do a lot of she said kind of a thing, so
Yeah.
it's harder to keep up with who's saying what, and
Oh,
who.
sure. Yeah.
Um,
So maybe just find like where the dialogue kicks in primarily and just focus in on that section. What do you think?
yeah. Okay.
Okay, great.
Okay. Okay. Clara turned because she had to see the person who just let her cross a threshold she hadn't been sure was real. You're not Alden. The man who opened the door looked briefly amused, as if her sentence matched a conversation he already had queued up in his head. No, I'm not. Where is he? She paused, then winced at herself. Sorry, he was the one who. Alden is a recruiter, Keith said, not unkindly. He doesn't like staying in the office. So he just drops the card like a curse and vanishes. Keith smiled. Yes, that's more or less how he works. That's not reassuring. It isn't meant to be, he said gently. It's meant to be effective.
Okay. All right. Good. I definitely heard more of that that feeling of uncertainty with her and being like you're not this person and like and I also felt like with him the first time for instance he was just a little more like deadpan I felt like and with this like you had the descriptive things like he didn't say unkindly, or like he's a little amused. I was hearing more of that like smile in the voice with him, a little bit more that kind of thing. Um, or like being like it's meant to be effective. That's more of just like a hey, here's how it is. We're not trying to make you feel comfortable. We're trying to get it done.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, like his shifts were actually more clear to me too. So I think by her having more attitude, you were able to play with that, like them responding off of each other more, which we've worked on in the past with characters, right? Where you had dialogue back and forth. And so I think that, by giving her a little bit more perspective and attitude and clarity on what's happening emotionally with her, it just automatically made him respond with more emotion, which was a pretty cool thing to hear. So, how did you feel about it? What did you like most about that?
I don't know. I felt like it was an improvement. So any type of
Yeah, for
improvement
sure.
um makes me happy. So I don't know. I felt like
Yes.
it flowed a little bit better. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I agree. I think that every time you do it, you're going to make new discoveries. You're going to, take it even further. So, with that, what would you say at this point is maybe the number one thing you're liking about this section? And what would be the number one thing that you still are like, I could polish this up a little more. I could improve this. I could take that farther.
Um so the thing I'm liking about it was that I was a little bit afraid of what it was going to be like when there was a narrator and several and a couple of characters.
Yeah.
But it wasn't so bad. So it's like as long as I know who's who and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm focused, I think I can get through it. So I'm happy
Yeah.
about that because I was intimidated by that.
Right.
The part that I want to work on a little bit more is when I know there's a couple of sections where there's going to be even more
Right.
like on the bus there's going to be like several different groups of kids and so
Yes. So
kind
you'll
of
have more people interacting rather than just two back and forth, right? Those will be a little more challenging. So I definitely think they'll take a little more work. One thing you might do is maybe like take different colored highlighters and like mark for yourself which character it is. Or because he doesn't do a lot of like this character says this person responded this specifying which character it is, maybe go through and like just jot in for yourself, put like a little asterisk or like a circle or an underline, like something to cue you to be like, oh, it's this character now. Just to help you mentally to piece all that together.
No, I think that's a great idea. And I was even thinking about it just with the two, right? When you asked me, okay, we'll just do her lines.
You were
And I
like, wait a
realized,
minute.
oh, I was like, it's going to be a little bit more difficult just because it's not always clear as to who's talking.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, if I
Yeah. So
feel
just
like,
helping yourself mentally approach that, organize it a little better for your brain. Definitely makes it a little bit easier.
yeah, no problem.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, sometimes we have to kind of get ourselves a little more organized when the author doesn't necessarily give us something that would help us. And if you think about actors too, like even stage or film actors, Anthony Hopkins, if you look at his scripts, he scribbles all over in the margins, circling, underlining, highlighting. Like he writes all over his scripts and takes so many notes there and just helps himself to like process and have little signals to himself. Um, so different actors need to do different things. Um, but I am someone who that really helps me to take little notes, to circle things, underline things, put like a big arrow, maybe put like a star next to something, just to kind of help myself. But I could definitely see myself taking like two different color highlighters. And even if it's like, I usually do iBooks. It's just easier for me. And so I'll go through like you can pick colors and things. Like you can still go in and like make markings in there.
Yep.
Like
I'm in iBooks right now, and when I'm
yeah.
making notes for my husband, I do
Mhm.
it right. I highlight using that too.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, different programs, different things, but a lot of, even if it's electronic, you can take those kind of notes. I like to also give myself, like, say they don't give me a lot of commas or punctuation. Sometimes I'm like, wow, there's like very little punctuation here. I'll go through and like add commas or like do a little slash or something to be like, take a pause here, take a breath there, especially when it's like really long, run on kind of feeling sentences. I'll be like, okay, so like there are a lot of prepositions just linked together, like prepositional phrases over and over. So I go, okay, so where would it make sense for me to take a breath and like to have a little pause? Because I have to breathe sometime. So I'll go through and I'll mark those kind of things for myself. So I definitely think that making notes to yourself, definitely do it. It definitely makes it easier for you if you're trying to like be like, blah, figuring it out as you go. It's just very stressful. And so yeah, I just kind of will be like, all right, I'm gonna take this page, I'm gonna go through and like make marks to myself, just to remind myself of little things and make decisions about how I want to do it. And then I'll try recording it after. Another thing that sometimes is helpful is I'll go with dialogue. Um, I'll say like I'll put the emotion or the action of whatever they're doing. So he is stabbing her with his words on this line. So I'll put like stab, and then I'll be like accuse, or I'll be like
Like direction.
comfort, right? Yeah, like a little note to myself of what I want to do with that character, especially if I'm like a little more tired or something and I'm just like, oh, I'm not quite as like sharp mentally today, or sometimes I'm just like stretched too thin. It just helps me to kind of mentally stay organized. And I go, oh, right, that's where I'm at. So yeah, I think that kind of thing is great to just make those little notes to yourself. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I definitely heard a lot of really good progress, and I was so pleased with the character dialogue. I feel like the work, like I said earlier, that we've done with the characters is really shining through here. Um, and I feel like honestly, the character stuff I think is going to come actually a little more easily to you because of all that good character work we've already done. And then the narration, I think, is going to be the part that is, a little more challenging just because we haven't done as much of it. Um, but I'm very excited about the character dialogue. Sometimes that's really challenging for people, but I think you're doing great with it. So, I would love for next time to maybe try to find a scene with three characters, four characters, more than two, just because we have done some scenes with multiple characters in the past. And so I'd love to see what happens if we, throw one or two more into the mix and see how we do with having a few characters, so it's not just the back and forth, but it's you know having to create this whole ensemble
Right.
of characters
Yeah.
at once, because I think that will probably be a little bit more of a challenge. So yeah, I'd love to try that for next time.
Yeah.
Beautiful work today. This was really fun. It's funny, you came in and you're like, I'm a little tired today, bear with me. But I thought we did some really, really productive work today. I'm really proud of you. I think this is going to be great. I think your husband's going to love what you do with the book. And I think he's going to be really pleased with how you bring it to life. And it's so exciting.
I like having a goal, so I think it's
Yeah.
good.
I also love it's something you can work on together. It's like a dream you can have together and you both bring different things to the project. But I just think that's so beautiful that you get to work on something creative together and kind of use your skills. So I think that's awesome. So yeah, keep up the great work with it. I'm excited to, keep on track with it. I think it's just very exciting. I would even say, maybe this week, chat with them a little bit about the characters and be like, so here's kind of like my direction I'm going. Do you have any insights or, how do you see it kind of unfolding and see if he has more guidance for certain characters or whatnot.
I have been talking to him a little bit about it,
Cool.
which is
Nice.
some of the reason why we've made some changes to the character.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
yeah, I will continue to do that, and yeah, he'll be
Very
feeling fleshed
cool.
out. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, sometimes authors are just like, bring it to life, do whatever you think. But I do think
Oh,
it
he
can be
is.
helpful when they have, some kind of a concept or vision and they can share that with you just to give you a little bit of guidance on what they were envisioning, when they did it. So when they wrote it and when they were first creating the world. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's awesome. You're already doing that. That's awesome. Love it. I would assume probably for editing too that that's helpful to get those kind of insights. But yeah, I think you guys are doing an awesome job. So keep up the good work. I'll plan to see you next Tuesday unless something happens.
All right, sounds good.
All
Thank
right. Well, have a good evening. Bye, Shamara. Get some good rest.
you.